I died choking on my own blood, the metallic tang flooding my mouth as my husband's hands, those same hands that once promised forever, pressed the pillow down over my face. "For the family," he'd whispered, his voice cracking like cheap whiskey, right before the world went black. But death wasn't the end. It was a goddamn reset button, slamming me back into my 25-year-old body, 3 years before that betrayal, standing in the rain outside a Seattle coffee shop, my engagement ring glinting like a lie under the streetlights. This time, I wouldn't be the trusting fool who built his empire on my broken back. I'd burn it all down, starting with the man who called me his stupid widow to my face. The first thing I did when I woke up in that cramped apartment on Capitol Hill, the one with the leaky faucet and the neighbor's endless true crime podcasts bleeding through the walls, was rip the ring off my finger. It wasn't a dramatic fling across the room or anything cinematic. No, I just twisted it free, felt the skin catch and tear, and dropped it into the kitchen sink like it was yesterday's coffee grounds. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the rage that had fermented in whatever limbo I'd just clawed out of. I remembered everything. The wedding vows in that overpriced vineyard outside Napa. The way Richard's father, Harlan, had sized me up like a used car during the toast, his eyes narrowing as if he could already see the expiration date stamped on my forehead. "She's got fire," he'd said then, chuckling into his scotch. But what he meant was trouble, the kind that could unravel the Hawthorne legacy if I ever figured out what they were hiding. In my first life, I was Hazel Green, the girl from a nowhere town in Oregon who hustled her way into UW's business program on scholarships and grit. Richard Hawthorne was the golden boy, trust fund kid, Wharton MBA, the heir to Hawthorne Imports, a shipping conglomerate that funneled everything from California avocados to sketchy electronics from who knows where ports. We met at a networking mixer, me in my thrift store blazer, him in bespoke wool, and he swept in like a knight in a Tesla, all charm and whispers about building something real. I fell hard, because who wouldn't? He made me feel seen, not like the scholarship kid scraping by on ramen and resolve. But that something real was Hawthorne Imports, all right. My labor, my ideas, my endless nights turning his half-baked visions into multi-million-dollar contracts, all while he golfed with investors and schmoozed at galas. By year 2 of marriage, I'd birthed our son, Theo, in a birthing suite that cost more than my parents' house, and that's when the cracks spiderwebbed. Harlan started dropping by unannounced, his advice laced with barbs. "A wife's place is support, Hazel, not spotlight." Richard echoed it, gaslighting me into thinking my exhaustion was postpartum blues, not the weight of carrying their empire. I uncovered the first secret buried in a late-night email chain. Hawthorne Imports wasn't just shipping fruit. They were laundering cash for Eastern European syndicates, using my optimized routes to dodge tariffs and feds. I'd confronted Richard once, tear-streaked and furious in our Bellevue master suite, and he'd laughed it off. "You're imagining things, babe. It's all above board." But it wasn't, and when I pushed, digging deeper into manifests that smelled like bullshit, they closed ranks. Harlan called me ungrateful. Richard isolated me from friends, and then the pillow. "For the family," he'd said, because exposing them meant prison for all, and I was the loose end. Now, back in 22, pre-wedding, pre-Theo, I had the advantage of hindsight sharper than a switchblade. I didn't call Richard that morning. No tearful, "let's talk," bullshit. Instead, I texted him a breezy rain check on brunch and blocked his number. My heart hammered like I'd chugged 3 espressos, but freedom tasted like the black coffee I brewed next, bitter and strong. I needed a plan, not panic. Step 1, get out of Seattle, away from the Hawthorne web. Step 2, unearth their dirt without tipping my hand. Step 3, make them pay, slow and surgical, until they choked on their own lies like I had. I started small, crashing on my old roommate's couch in Portland while I job hunted. Lena, bless her chain-smoking soul, didn't pry when I showed up with a duffel and a haunted look. "Men are trash," she declared over cheap Pinot, and I just nodded, sketching timelines in a battered notebook. The wedding was 6 months out, plenty of time to sabotage from the shadows. I remembered Harlan's weak spot, his vanity, the way he'd leveraged Hawthorne Imports' clean image for political donations, rubbing elbows with senators at fundraisers. If I could flip that, expose the rot beneath the polish. But I needed proof, not paranoia. My first real move was dipping into freelance consulting, using my pre-marriage contacts to land gigs auditing supply chains for mid-tier importers. Irony, I was sharpening the very skills that had doomed me before. Nights blurred into code-cracking sessions, VPNs masking my IP as I wormed into public records, cross-referencing Hawthorne's filings with whispers from dark web forums. It was there, in a thread about ghost cargo, that I hit pay dirt. Manifests from 20 vessels rerouted through Vancouver with manifests doctored to hide opioid precursors. Not just laundering, facilitating the flood that had drowned half of Appalachia. Harlan's signature, digital and damning, on the approvals. My stomach twisted. This wasn't abstract evil. Theo, my unborn son, would have grown up in that poisoned shadow. But revenge isn't a solo act. I needed allies, and that's where Marcus came in. He was an ex-Fed turned PI, the kind of grizzled vet you'd find nursing IPAs at a dive bar off I-5, tattoos peeking from his Henley sleeves. I'd known him peripherally from a supply chain conference. In my old life, he'd flirted harmlessly while Richard seethed. Now, over greasy burgers at a food truck pod, I laid it out. Not the death, God no, that'd land me in a psych ward, but the suspicions about Hawthorne. I think they're dirty, I said, sliding him a USB with my prelim digs. His eyes, sharp behind wire rims, lit with that hunter's gleam. You sure you want to dance with this, Hazel? These old money pricks don't play nice. I met his gaze, the rain-slicked streets reflecting in the truck's chrome. They already stepped on my toes. Time to stomp back. Marcus became my ghost in the machine, pulling strings I couldn't reach. We met in neutral spots, abandoned warehouses on the waterfront, where the hum of container cranes drowned our whispers. He confirmed the syndicates, Russian outfits with ties to DC lobbyists, funneled through Harlan's charity PACs. Richard? Not the mastermind, but complicit, signing off on falsified logs to keep the cash flowing for his yacht habit. The betrayal burned deeper knowing it. He'd chosen legacy over love, over me. But Theo, in this loop, did I even want him? The thought clawed at me, a controversial ache, aborting the future despite the past. No, I'd rewrite it. Keep the boy, raise him right, away from their venom. As weeks bled into months, I wove back into their orbit, not as the eager bride, but a cooler version, postponing the wedding with a vague, cold feet email, citing career opportunities. Richard bought it, flooding my inbox with pleading voicemails. Babe, we can make this work. Dad says you're just stressed. Harlan, ever the patriarch, invited me for a chat at the family estate in Medina, that sprawling McMansion on Lake Washington, with its infinity pool and panic room basement. I went, dressed in power armor, tailored slacks, silk blouse, hair in a no-nonsense bob. Theo's existence loomed unspoken. In this timeline, I hadn't conceived yet, but the ghost of him tugged at my resolve. The dinner was a minefield. Harlan at the head, Richard to his right, me across like a defendant in the dock. Candlelight danced on crystal, casting Harlan's jowls in hellish glow. We started civil, small talk about Seahawks tickets, my consulting side hustle, but his eyes bored in, probing. Heard you're digging into logistics, he said, swirling Cabernet, voice oily as bilge water. Ambitious, but ambition without roots? That's just wandering. Richard shifted, uncomfortable, but said nothing. I smiled, for piercing asparagus. Roots can strangle, Harlan. Sometimes you gotta prune. That's when he dropped it, casual as passing the breadbasket. Richard tells me you're having doubts. Smart girl, don't want to end up like those stupid widows, clinging to ghosts while the world moves on. He chuckled, low and mean, glancing at Richard for approval. The room tilted. In my memory, this line came post-mortem, hurled at me 6 months after Richard died in a yacht accident, the one they'd staged to collect insurance and bury evidence, leaving me to grieve alone with a toddler and mounting debts. I'd been shattered then, but here, it was the match to my fuse. I set my fork down, the clink echoing like a gavel. Widows? You mean the women left holding the bag after men like you gamble it all away? Richard's face paled, but Harlan leaned in, intrigued, mistaking my calm for capitulation. See, that's why you need us Hawthorns. Stability. Legacy. I laughed, sharp and unladylike, the sound slicing the tension. Legacy? Like shipping death and produce crates? Or donating to Pauls who look the other way? The air sucked out, Richard choked on his wine. Harlan's glass froze midair. You don't know what you're, Harlan started, but I cut him off, voice steady as Seattle fog. I know enough. The Vancouver reroutes, the shell companies in Cyprus. Opioids killing kids in Ohio while you toast at galas. And Richard? He's the pen on the poison. Evidence spilled from my phone, screenshots, timestamps. Marcus's handiwork, anonymized but ironclad. Harlan's face mottled red, veins bulging like fault lines. This is slander. Extortion. Richard stammered. Hazel, what the hell? We can talk. But I was done talking. No more chats. Call off the wedding, or this hits the DOJ by dawn. They didn't call it off. They panicked. Richard showed up at my Portland bolt hole that night, pounding the door like a man possessed. Open up, Hazel. Dad's furious. You can't do this. I let him in, watched him pace the tiny living room, sweat beading on his Brooks Brothers collar. It's not what you think. The shipments. They were one-offs. Dad's connections got us out of a bind. Lies. All of it. But his desperation was delicious. I poured him water, spiked with nothing but truth, and laid it bare. My intuition. The forums, the dots connected. He begged, on his knees, promising change, therapy, anything. I love you, Hazel. Theo, he needs us. The mention of our unborn son hit like a gut punch, but I steeled. Theo needs a mother who isn't suffocating. And you? You're the air that's killing her. He left at dawn, tail between legs, but the Hawthorns weren't done. Harlan lawyered up, sending cease and desist via courier, threats veiled as concerns for your well-being. Marcus laughed when I forwarded them. They're scared. Means we're close. We were. Deeper dives revealed the crown jewel. A 19 deal where Harlan bribed a port inspector, recorded on a whistleblower's thumb drive Marcus acquired from a retired dock worker. The twist? Richard knew, had even suggested the payoff over cigars at the club. But the real gut twist came from Lena, of all people. She'd dated a Hawthorne cousin years back, heard whispers of a family curse, Harlan's first wife, dead in a car accident after threatening divorce, tires tampered. Echoes of my pillow. Coincidence? Bullshit. Harlan wasn't just mired in crime. He was a serial silencer. My decisions turned controversial fast. I could have gone straight to the feds, clean and heroic, but that'd drag innocents, employees, low-level grunts, into the crossfire. No, I wanted personal. I leaked teasers to investigative pods like The Wiretap and Crime Beat, anonymous drops that lit up Reddit and X like dry tinder. Is Hawthorne Imports the next Wirecard? Trended, stock dipped 15% overnight. Harlan retaliated with smears, PIs digging into my past, painting me as unstable, a gold digger scorned. Friends distanced, job offers dried up. But I had Marcus and Lena and the fire in my veins. Pregnancy hit like a freight train, morning sickness in a courthouse bathroom after filing for a restraining order. Theo, real this time, but on my terms. I named the clinic, the OB, all solo. Richard tried visitation pleas through lawyers, but I shut him down. Earn it in orange. The birth was raw, no epidural, just me and a doula in a Portland birthing center. Theo's cry the first honest sound in years. Harlan's next move was bold, a grandfatherly visit, showing up at the hospital with balloons and a social worker in tow, claiming concern for the child's welfare. Security bounced him, but not before he hissed through the doors. You'll regret this, you stupid widow-in-waiting. That did it. The gala, their big annual schmooze fest at the Seattle Center, black ties and backroom deals. I crashed it, not as arm candy, but Avenger. Black gown, hairpin like a crown, Marcus feeding me updates via earpiece. I mingled, charming the marks. The senator with the opioid district, the journalist sniffing scandals. Whispers spread, my insider knowledge, vague enough to hook. Harlan cornered me by the bar, breath sour with bourbon. You think you can dismantle us? We're Hawthorns. Blood and stone. I leaned in, voice of velvet blade. Stone crumbles, Harlan. And blood? It washes out. The climax unfolded in the grand hall, chandeliers blazing as the string quartet hit a crescendo. I timed it. DOJ tip line hot, reporters embedded. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Drives uploaded. It's live. I stepped to the mic, uninvited, for the surprise announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, voice amplified, steady as the space needle outside. Tonight, we celebrate not legacy, but lies. Projections flickered, manifests, bribes, the widow's accident report, Harlan's voice on tape. Handle it like the last one. Gasps rippled. Richard bolted for the exit. Harlan frozen, face ashen. Chaos erupted. Feds swarming, flashes popping, screams mingling with sobs. Harlan lunged, grabbing my arm, nails digging like accusations. You bitch, this is treason. But I twisted free, Theo's locket, my talisman, cool against my skin. No, Harlan, this is justice. For the widows you made. He collapsed, clutching his chest, the irony poetic. A man felled not by bullets, but exposure. Richard vanished into the night, later nabbed at Seattle-Tacoma with a one-way to Zurich. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Trials in federal court, headlines screaming, heiress exposes dynasty of death. I testified, unflinching, my words carving deeper than any knife. Controversial? Hell yes. Pundits decried me as vengeful harpy, destroying jobs, ruining lives for spite. Feminists hailed me vigilante queen. True crime junkies devoured the pod recaps. But in the quiet, with Theo napping in our tiny craftsman in Eugene, I felt the weight lift. No pillow this time. No blood. Twist came months later, post-sentencing. Harlan, rotting in Supermax, slipped me a letter through channels. Not apology, but confession. The first wife? His kill, yes. But Richard. He'd confessed doubts to me once, pre-murder, and I'd dismissed them as weakness. In my old life, I'd enabled by silence. This time, I'd shattered the cycle. You win, he scrawled. But blood calls to blood. I burned it, ashes scattering in the Willamette wind. Now, 3 years on, Theo's 7, building Lego empires on the rug while I consult clean, ethical chains, women-owned startups. Richard rots in adjacent cell block, appeals denied. Harlan, dead of natural causes, they say. I call it karma. No more ghosts. Just me, unbroken, sipping coffee on a porch swing, watching rain fall like redemption. Life post-gala settled into a rhythm I'd never known. Deliberate, unapologetic. Eugene's college town vibes suited us. Farmers markets on Saturdays, Theo's laughter echoing in the community pool, my office a sunlit nook overlooking the Mackenzie River. But peace? That's a luxury for the unwary. The hawthorn's tendrils lingered, subtle as kudzu. Anonymous tips to CPS claiming I was unfit. Job blacklists whispered in boardrooms. Marcus handled the legal jabs, his PI firm booming off my referrals, but the emotional shrapnel? That I cauterized alone. Theo was the anchor, all chubby cheeks and endless questions. Why don't I have a grandpa like the other kids? He'd ask, crayon in fist, and I'd spin tales of faraway sailors, not monsters in suits. Fatherhood stripped bare Richard's facade. He'd been a boy playing king, Harlan the puppeteer. In therapy, mine, not his. Irony's a bitch. I unpacked the guilt. Had I loved the idea of him, the escape from my Milltown roots? Maybe. But rebirth taught me love isn't blind. It's a choice, and I'd chosen survival. Controversy dogged like a bad review. Op-eds in The Stranger branded me ruthless redeemer, praising the takedown but side-eyeing my personal vendetta. Fox News looped clips of Harlan's heart attack in custody, implying foul play. Me, the Black Widow orchestrating from afar. Laughable, but it stung when Theo came home from kindergarten with crayon drawings of mean ladies in jail. I hugged him tighter, vowing, no more secrets. We baked cookies shaped like handcuffs that night, giggling at the absurdity. Marcus and I, that evolved too. What started as alliance simmered into something real. Late dinners at his waterfront cabin, dissecting cases over microbrews. He got it. The rage that doesn't fade but forges. You're a force, Hazel, he'd say, tracing my scars, literal from the ring, figurative from the pillow. Our first kiss was tentative, rain lashed on his deck, tasting of second chances. Theo adored him, calling him Uncle Mark, until it stuck. Family, redefined, not blood, but battle-tested. But the Hawthorns weren't extinct. Richard's sister, Evelyn, the overlooked middle child, all pearls and passive aggression, emerged from the woodwork. She'd been peripheral in the empire, managing philanthropy fronts that laundered goodwill. Post-scandal, she sued for custody, claiming Theo's heritage trumped my instability. Courtroom drama unfolded in Portland Federal, me in pencil skirts, her in Chanel armor. Her star witness? A therapist paid to testify I'd fabricated the abuse for clout. Gaslight 2.0. I countered with Marcus's dossier. Evelyn's emails greenlighting creative accounting for the PACs, her signatures on diversion manifests. The judge, a no-nonsense Latina with a stare like laser sights, saw through the theater. This isn't about legacy, Miss Hawthorne, she ruled, gavel cracking like thunder. It's about a child's right to a mother unbroken by your family's sins. Custody mine, but the victory tasted bittersweet. Theo, at 5 then, drew us all as stick figures in a boat, sinking. Evelyn didn't slink away. She pivoted to media martyr, pinning a Medium post, betrayed by blood. How my brother's wife destroyed us. It went viral, mommy bloggers clutching pearls over feminism gone toxic. Threats piled up, doxes, slashed tires on my Subaru. I installed cameras, carried pepper spray, but the real weapon was truth. I wrote my rebuttal, not in pixels, but pages, a memoir pitch to a Seattle indie press. Widow's Reckoning, reborn from betrayal. They bit, and suddenly I was the voice. Pod tours, TEDx invites, women demanding stories of their own Harlans. That's when the twist deepened. During edits, my agent unearthed a Hawthorne family Bible in estate auctions. Harlan's, leather-bound and ledger-like. Tucked in its leaves, letters from the 80s, his first wife, Clara, pleading escape from the business. Her death? Not accident. Suffocation in a hotel mishap, hushed by payoffs. And a photo. Young Harlan with a boy not Richard, a bastard son, hidden to preserve the line. The secret Harlan guarded fiercer than syndicates. His true heir, shipped off to boarding school, now a mid-level suit in D.C., oblivious or complicit. I debated telling. Controversy loomed. Air this, and I paint myself grave digger of graves. But silence. That's how they won before. I tracked the son, Ellis, to a foggy-bottom think tank. Coffee meet. Him, rumpled tweed and wary eyes. Me with the Bible like Excalibur. Your father's ghosts are knocking, I said, sliding the photo. He blanched, then raged. That bastard disowned me for mom's indiscretion. Turns out, Clara's affair was escape fantasy. Ellis was Harlan's, blood and bone. The abandonment fueled him, quiet vendettas, leaks to rivals that nicked Hawthorne margins pre-collapse. We allied, uneasy. Ellis with insider poll angles, me with the street grit. Together, we funneled the Bible to ProPublica, igniting round 2. The hidden heir and the Hawthorne curse. Stocks cratered further, Evelyn's facade cracked. She confessed in a plea deal, trading testimony for leniency. Richard, from his cell, wrote me, "You were always the smart one. Forgive." I burned that too. Forgiveness? A luxury for the living unscarred. Theo turned 6 amid the frenzy, his party a low-key park bash with Marcus grilling brats. But as cake smeared his face, a shadow fell. CPS again, tipped by Evelyn's allies. This time, it stuck. Overnight evaluation, me pacing a sterile waiting room while they quizzed my boy. Rage boiled. I called Marcus, voice steel. End this. By morning, counter-evidence flooded the caseworker's inbox. Affidavits, psych evals, Theo's own drawings of happy home with mommy and Mark. Cleared, but the scar? A reminder. Vengeance is marathon, not sprint. Summer brought heat. Literal, Portland's record scorcher mirroring my simmer. I took Theo to the Oregon coast. Dunes and driftwood our sanctuary. There, building sandcastles, he asked the big one, was Daddy bad? Truth or fairy tale? I chose hybrid. He made choices that hurt people, buddy. But you're the best choice I ever made. He nodded, solemn, then buried the moat deeper. Kids absorb like sponges, mine soaked up strength. Back home, the memoir dropped. Bestseller lists, Oprah Book Club whispers. Controversy peaked at a Seattle signing. Protesters outside. Justice or jealousy? Signs bobbing. Inside, fans queued. Survivors sharing whispers, thanking my courage. One, a widow from Harlan's era, slipped me a note. He tried the same with me. You stopped him. Tears. Yeah, but power, too. Marcus proposed on a rainy hike. Ring simple silver, no diamonds. No empires, just us. I said yes, the yes that mattered. Wedding small, courthouse, Lena officiating, Theo ring bearer in tiny suspenders. No ghosts invited. Yet the final twist waited in Supermax mail. Harlan's last words, smuggled pre-death. Not rage, but plea. Tell Ellis I'm sorry. And you, Hazel, you were the daughter I never deserved. I read it to Theo as bedtime story, edited, a sailor's regret. Forgave? Not fully. But released, yes. The pillow's weight lifted, fully. Now, with Theo in school plays and Marcus's hand in mine, I consult globally, clean chains from Seattle to Saigon. The Hawthorns? Dust. Me? Reborn, unbreakable. Call me widow no more. Years blurred after the wedding. A tapestry of ordinary miracles laced with the extraordinary echo of survival. Theo hit double digits, all gangly limbs and soccer cleats, his questions evolving from, why no daddy, to mom, what's your superpower? I'd laugh, ruffling his curls, seeing through bullshit, kiddo. Marcus grounded us, his PI tales spun into bedtime adventures, teaching Theo lockpicking with toy kits. Our home expanded, a fixer-upper in Eugene's Whitaker hood, murals on walls, garden bursting herbs. Life, post-revenge, wasn't flawless, but it was mine. The memoir's ripple? Enduring. It spawned a nonprofit, Widow's Watch, aiding women untangling from toxic legacies. Legal aid, therapy pods, supply chain ethics training. I keynoted at Davos once, facing suits who'd golfed with Harlan, my voice echoing. Legacy isn't inheritance, it's accountability. Controversy followed, accusations of profiting off pain, but donations poured in, lives rerouted. Ellis joined the board, his DC polish softening into genuine alliance. You gave me family, he said once, over whiskey sours. Screwed up, but real. Richard's appeals dragged, a spectacle of denial. He wrote sporadically, letters laced with remorse, then resentment. You've poisoned him against me. Theo read one. At 12, face hardening. He chose the money, Mom. Like Grandpa, we burned the rest, ashes fertilizing our rose bushes. Evelyn faded into obscurity. Her philanthropy pivoted to yoga retreats in Bali, last I heard. The syndicates? Dismantled by task forces, my leaks the spark. But tension simmered beneath. At 15, Theo rebelled, sneaking out, grades slipping, echoes of Richard's wild youth. I just want to know him, he exploded one night, slamming his door. Heartbreak revisited. Was blood the curse? Marcus and I tag-teamed. Tough love, family therapy. I shared more. The pillow, sanitized, the rebirth as a dream that changed everything. He listened, eyes wide, then hugged fierce. You're my hero, Mom. Not him. Controversial decision loomed then, visitation. Therapists urged exposure, closure for healing. Me? Gut screamed no. Richard, paroled early on good behavior, lurking like a bad sequel. But Theo begged, and love bends. Supervised meet at a neutral park, Marcus shadowing. Richard arrived gaunt, grayer, hands trembling sans cuffs. Son. He choked, and Theo stiffened, polite but distant. They talked soccer, Hawthorne glory days, lies Theo saw through like glass. You hurt Mom, he said flat. That's not glory. Richard deflated, glancing my way, eyes pleading. I met them cold. Actions, not apologies. Theo walked away first, choosing us. The real climax? Harlan's estate, auction, remnants hawked to pay restitution. I bid on the yacht, that floating tomb from my old death. Not for keepsake, but demolition. Public torching on the sound. Flames devouring oak decks as drones captured for Widow's Watch Gala. Protesters decried vindictiveness, but attendees, survivors, allies, cheered. Ellis lit the match, whispering, for Clara. Twist revealed in the blaze. Hidden compartment. Ledgers detailing every bribe, every mishap. Final nails, gifted to the DOJ. Theo, now 18, college-bound for UW. Irony embraced, graduated top of class. His speech. My mom taught me revenge isn't hate. It's reclaiming power. Tears flowed. Marcus gripped my hand, pride swelling. Post-ceremony, Richard appeared uninvited. Flowers wilted as his hope. Proud of him. Theo nodded curt. Of us. Richard turned to me, voice rasp. You won, Hazel. But was it worth it? I smiled, genuine. Every scar. Karma's last laugh. Richard's accident, freak fall in prison yard, echoes of his staging. Suicide or shiv. Official, misstep. Me? I mourned the boy I loved once, not the man he became. Funeral skipped. Instead, Theo and I planted a tree, roots deep, branches free. Decades on, gray-streaked and grandkids orbiting, I sipped tea on that same porch, Theo's daughter clambering my lap. Marcus gone 5 years. Cancer, quick and cruel. But his laugh lingers in the wind chimes. Widows watch global now, Ellis Helming. Controversy? Faded to legend, my story Netflix, debates eternal. Reborn? More than once. From death to defiance, betrayal to bomb. Harlan called me stupid widow once. My final response? Living louder than their lies. Blood calls, but I answer on my terms.